Brooks and Woody Allen, the two most successful comedy directors in the world today. Now, who's funnier? To me, it's Mel Brooks. I love his sight gags and his slapstick.
And I say it's Woody Allen. His comedy makes me laugh and think.
And this special Take Two program will take the form of a debate with film clips. The issue is, who's funnier, Mel Brooks or Woody Allen? In Woody's corner is Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune.
And speaking on behalf of Mel Brooks is Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times. Now, Roger and I, and most of the people we know, agree that Brooks and Allen are America's two funniest filmmakers. There are many similarities between the two men. Both are Brooklyn-born Jews who began their careers as gag writers and as stand-up comics. They even worked together as writers for the same television program, Sid Caesar's Your Show of Shows, back in the 50s. And yet, there are dramatic differences between the films of the two men. We'll be looking at their different approaches to characters, ideas, and to comic situations as this debate continues. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Let's start with the major difference, which is the subjects they make fun of.
What Mel Brooks has the most fun with are movies, old movies. He says he spent half his childhood in the dark of a Brooklyn movie theater, memorizing the film classics of the 30s and 40s. And those old movies must still be tucked away somewhere in the back of his head, since almost all of Mel Brooks' pictures make fun of old movie cliches and stereotypes. He started out with the producers in 1968, and we'll have a scene from that later on, but his first real target for satire was the Western. So Mel Brooks satirizes old movies. He plays off of our own shared sense of movie history because we know these cliches and stereotypes as well as he does. That's part of the fun. We're in on the joke.
Okay, here we come to the part where I attack you and Mel Brooks. But
wonderful.
First, what I really want to do is say that I think that Mel Brooks is a terrific comedy filmmaker. He's my second favorite comedy filmmaker in the 70s.
After Woody Allen, right? And vice versa for me. It's
okay.
A two-way street.
I think what we really want to do here that's worthwhile is talk about directions in these two filmmakers' careers. We think they're very good, and we both see danger signs in the most recent films that each guy has made, and we want to point those out to each other. In Mel Brooks, I think it's the last two pictures that bother me. He's parodying silent movie, and then in the Hitchcock parody, High Anxiety. I don't think those are inspired choices of things to parody. I think he's repeating himself, getting a little stale.
As far as I'm concerned, if he can continue to be as inventive as he has been, I'm not concerned about the direction
and I
of his
see
career.
warning signs of repetition, and I prefer a filmmaker who changes and grows and tries to stretch himself a little more. For example, I'm thinking, you might guess,
a random example.
Yeah, Woody Allen. I think Woody Allen keeps growing as a filmmaker. His films have been mostly about his difficulty, every man's difficulty, in establishing a long-lasting relationship with a woman. Here's a series of scenes from 3 Woody Allen films spanning 9 years. Watch how he grows more competent as a lover and as a filmmaker. We begin with the first film he directed, Take the Money and Run. Annie Hall shows us Woody Allen at the top of his game. It's a warm, human comedy, rich with laughs and ideas. Maybe that's why it was the first comedy in 38 years to win the Academy Award as Best Picture. It's a most inventive piece of filmmaking.
Okay, so fine. When it won the Oscar, I was happy because I think Annie Hall is a very good picture, too. I loved it. I'm not so sure I'm crazy about his next 2 films. Interiors, which was deliberately a very serious drama, but then Manhattan, where you see once again, this creeping seriousness, this feeling that Woody Allen is beginning to take the issues that he raises quite seriously in terms of human relationships, what he stands for, what he thinks about women and so forth. That's okay. Maybe it's great in the work of another director, but dare I say there's such a thing as growing too much, growing beyond comedy? I mean, you look at the 2 great American comic directors, Keaton and Chaplin. Now, Keaton basically remained himself, and he tried to perfect that persona, perfect the kind of movie that he wanted to make, and make it better and better. Chaplin got creeping seriousness. It's almost a disease. In a movie like The Great Dictator, he ends it with a long speech about the state of affairs in the world and so forth that's just deadly dull.
I think that Manhattan is a fine film. It's an attempt, certainly by Allen, to perfect his art in his mind, and he's tackling it on a little harder edge. He doesn't want to make Annie Hall Part 2. He's also dealing with Diane Keaton, who's an actress who doesn't want to repeat herself. You know, these aren't shoddy filmmakers here. Your issue is right, Roger. I just think that you might be flagging Woody Allen a little too early.
Maybe what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to put up a defense of pure comedy. It's good enough in and of itself. A director like Allen doesn't have to do anything else or get more and more serious in order to justify his existence in my book. And what I've done is I've taken some scenes from Woody Allen films. First of all, some scenes that illustrate things that I really like in Woody Allen, and then later on some stuff from Manhattan indicating things I'm not so crazy about. And I'm going to start with the good stuff. One good thing about Woody Allen is that he has developed this great all-purpose comic persona, this character like Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton did. He's basically the skinny, insecure intellectual with the horn-rimmed glasses. He has a tendency to get goofy whenever he's around a pretty girl. Now, you say the Allen character is more secure around women in his later films, but I think the Allen character will probably always be a lot like he is in this scene from Annie Hall. Here he is, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a spider in his former girlfriend's bathroom, and here comes Woody to the rescue. There he is, Woody Allen, the basic Woody Allen character, courageously able to face any situation and be defeated by it. He has a sort of whistling in the dark bravery there that we can easily identify with. And speaking for myself, when the chips are down and there's a big hairy spider in the bathroom, I'm no more crazy about going in there after it than Woody is. He gives us an all-purpose character there that we can laugh at and love at the same time. And I like him when he plays everyman as a schlep. But in his recent movies, Allen has begun playing characters that are closer to himself. His characters resemble the famous Woody Allen, the real Woody Allen, the insecure New York intellectual that we've read about. Look at this scene, for example, from Manhattan, which is filmed in black and white. Woody and his friends, including the teenager he's dating and Diane Keaton, who he's destined to fall in love with, are engaged in one of New York's favorite intellectual word games, the put-down. But compare the feeling in those scenes with the feeling we got while we were watching Annie Hall. Now, do you really call that growth in his relationship? Because I don't. His characters have become self-consciously intellectual, analytical, and not as funny. You can see Woody Allen there slipping away from his all-purpose comic persona that he developed in those other movies and into a character who might be a lot closer to life, but he's also a lot less funny. And I don't call that growth, Gene. I think he's in danger of losing what made him unique.
I think that this can be said, that Woody Allen, a lot of people wanted to make Annie Hall Part 2. Maybe you were one of those people. Well, he didn't make that. He's got a brighter mind than that. Maybe he couldn't be contained in just duplicating himself. He's done it once. He wants to move on to something else. Diane Keaton is an actress, too. She's a powerhouse. She doesn't want to just play Annie Hall again. I think that they joked about these same issues once. They want to put a little harder edge on it. And I laughed with the Van Gogh line.
No, I didn't want Annie Hall Part 2. I'm just concerned about Manhattan being, in addition to the things that they're taking as that they were joking about before and they're being a little more serious now, I think they're being really more serious now, and I'm not sure that Manhattan or a Woody Allen picture is the right vehicle for that at all.
Well, all right, listen, I have some objections to what's going on in Mel Brooks' career.
All right.
My favorite of all of his films is The 12 Chairs, which was his second film made right after The Producers and before Blazing Saddles. I like those films, too. But The 12 Chairs is wonderful. It's set in Russia during the Revolution. A couple of peasants, Ron Moody and Frank Langella, are searching for a fortune in jewels hidden in the seat of one of a set of 12 matching chairs. They track down 11 of the chairs at the Moscow Museum of Furniture. Something happened to The 12 Chairs that I think may have changed Mel Brooks' career in a very important way. The 12 Chairs was a financial flop, and that flop came right after the box office failure of The Producers, which was a wonderful film, but it didn't make any money either. So with The 12 Chairs, Mel Brooks' film career was really in jeopardy. What happened? Well, after 3 long years of work, he finally got financing for Blazing Saddles, which was a tremendous box office success. Ever since then, he's gone, I think, for the belly laughs and for the profits, considerable profits to be found in parodies of old movies. But that formula, I think, is growing stale. In High Anxiety, his most recent film, Brooks parodies the thrillers of Alfred Hitchcock, here involving a typical Hitchcock case of mistaken identity. That's not very scary and I don't think very funny. You have to be a film student to know that Brooks is parodying the Hitchcock films where people like Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman have been wrongly accused of a crime and then spend the whole movie trying to prove themselves innocent. Even if you do know that, I think the film is sort of a lame joke. So, I think Mel Brooks has abandoned warm human comedies for formula parodies made especially for film freaks. It's a formula I think that's wearing out, and that's one reason I prefer the direction that Woody Allen's career has taken him.
Well, I agree with your criticism of High Anxiety. I think you do have to know the Hitchcock films in order to get the joke, and even then I'm not sure it's that funny because Hitchcock was there first with the joke. It's much easier in a parody to attack something that's very stuffy and takes itself very seriously.
Like the Western, maybe?
Like the Western, or in many
Saddle.
cases, the monster movie. But in the case of Hitchcock, he knows the joke already. He kids himself, and so it's very hard to outflank him.
Okay.
But as far as his other films are concerned, first of all, I'm not sure that the early Brooks films were that warm and human, even though you seem to think so. I think The Producers was kind of cold and cynical, and all the funnier for that. And in terms of the parodies of the movie genres, I think what Mel Brooks wants when he walks past a theater that has one of his movies playing into it is the sound of laughter coming from inside.
Of course.
That's what I want when I go to a Brooks movie, is to laugh. I think I can defend his career on that basis, that he wants to amuse me. That's enough. I'm satisfied.
Well, Roger, I'm not saying that laughter isn't what I want, or I think that laughter is trivial. I want to laugh, too. One of the things that gets in the way of Mel Brooks making me laugh, I must tell you, is him now wanting to have himself star as the center stage character in his own films, like we just saw in High Anxiety. For me, that doesn't work. I prefer, as a leading man in a picture, a little bit of a more innocent actor, like Dom DeLuise, who's been in Brooks's pictures, or Gene Wilder. I think they're better film actors, and I think that Brooks is better as just a supporting player who comes on and makes a real wild statement for one. But you know what I'm saying?
Well, now I think you're shifting the area of the attack a little bit. But I defend Brooks as a film actor. I think he was fine in Silent Movie. He was fine for what he needed to do in High Anxiety. So I reject that attack, and I also defend him as a treasure for his ability, which is very rare, to make me laugh. And I think that's enough. Brooks does make me laugh, and that is such a rare ability that it's plenty for me. Here's a scene from Brooks's first film, which I want to show you, The Producers, made in 1968. This remains, for me, one of the single funniest and most memorable scenes that Mel Brooks or Woody Allen or anybody else has ever done. It stars Zero Mostel as a crooked Broadway producer who's just cooked up a scheme to make a lot of money by defrauding the investors in a show he plans to produce. And Gene Wilder is the nervous, certified public accountant who's supposed to juggle the books. Now, Mostel tries to convince Wilder they'll make millions, enough to fly off to Rio. That's got to be a classic scene. You know,
Sure.
For years, whenever everything is broken out at the same time, that's what I said. I said, I'm hysterical, and I'm wet.
No, it's a great line, and I just want to point out that's early Mel Brooks, which is the Mel Brooks that I really love. Here is my last chance, though, at convincing you that Woody Allen is funnier than Brooks. This is one of Woody Allen's greatest scenes. In the beginning of Annie Hall, Woody Allen's character tells us about his childhood. In a very clever and tender moment, he takes us back to his second-grade classroom. Those kids are priceless. It's a very, very creative scene. It's wise and a little bit sad, too, to see a bunch of kids and find out what's happened to them. If Woody Allen hadn't taken risks like he's been doing, he would never have made Annie Hall. That's an inventive piece of filmmaking. He should keep taking big risks.
You know, one thing, in the 20s we had Chaplin and Keaton, in the 40s we had McCary and Preston Sturges, and now we have Woody Allen and Mel Brooks. I think we're lucky to have these two guys to talk about at the same time. I'm looking forward to their next films. And so much for Mel Brooks and Woody Allen. We agree on one thing, they're the two funniest filmmakers working today. And that's it for this show. Join us next week for sneak previews, and until then, we'll see you at the movies.